Hello and a very warm welcome to the Jaggy Thistle Podcast. My name's Kenny Farquharson and this is where we do Scottish politics and Scottish culture. You're very welcome. I've been told by younger people who know more about this kind of thing than I do that I should, at the start of these podcasts, say to people, you should subscribe. You should hit that button. If you're on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Substack or wherever, you need to hit the button to subscribe to make sure you get these podcasts as and when they're published or put online or whatever the phrase is. Usually every week, not every week. I have a life which occasionally interrupts me, but I'm going to try and do them every week, and I think they're going pretty well. I hope you'll agree. If you don't, let me know. If you do, let me know. Feedback's good. This is a conversation, a community. We like to have a little bit of a back and forth on that. So please subscribe to the Jaggy Thistle in whatever way is appropriate on the platform you're on. And that way you can be assured that you're not going to miss any of these wee conversations in the future. So today, what we're talking about, we're going to talk about the golden rule in politics. And what is the golden rule in politics? And for me, the number one rule is that politicians should never take their voters for granted. And if they do take their voters for granted, it happens occasionally, never let the voters realise that they're being taken for granted. That's an even worse sin in the world of politics. And I was thinking this recently when I was watching John Swinney and how he dealt with there was a resignation of one of his ministers, a junior minister called Jamie Hepburn. And it was over a very inglorious saga about seagulls. Don't you just love Scottish politics? And I must admit, when the minister resigned over seagulls, I kept thinking about puns. I was thinking, he'll be up before the beak. Get it? A beak, get it? I was thinking, is he gulty or not gulty? It's kind of, they just kept coming thick and fast. So, when Jamie Hepburn had to resign after manhandling a Tory MSP in the chamber over in an argument about seagulls, I thought, well, look, this is a very good opportunity for John Swinney, the First Minister, to reshuffle his government in anticipation of next year's Holyrood election. Labour not long ago had a reshuffle that was prompted by the resignation of Angela Rayner, and I think that was used as an opportunity for it to freshen up the Labour government at Westminster. And I thought Swinney might use this as an opportunity to freshen up the Scottish cabinet as we head into a Holyrood election campaign. But he didn't. Instead of a big reshuffle, he had what one of my colleagues called a wee shuffle. Not a reshuffle, a wee shuffle. And frankly, I don't think this is good enough. And I think Swinney is in danger of committing the biggest sin in politics, which, as we just discussed, is to take your voters for granted. And let me explain why, okay? The Scottish Cabinet at the moment, the SNP government in Scotland, is a lame duck government. It's a lame duck cabinet with lame duck ministers. And why do I say that? Because 4 of the ministers in the Scottish cabinet do not intend to seek re-election next May. They are on their way out of Scottish politics. They're on their way out of Holyrood. So these are, some of them are quite senior ministers. There's Kate Forbes, the Deputy First Minister and Economy Secretary. There's Shona Robison, the Finance Secretary. There's Mary Gougen, the Rural Affairs Minister, the Secretary. And there's Fiona Hislop, who's been in government right from the start, I think off and on, from the SNP's time in power, who is the Transport Secretary. All 4 of these ministers, some of the most senior ministers in Swinney's cabinet, are not going to be here after May. So why on earth are they still in the Scottish government? Why on earth are they still drawing a salary as a cabinet minister? It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense politically when you think about what's going to happen in the general in the Holyrood election come May. I mean, how do these conversations work when these people are fronting up SNP policy on their areas of responsibility, on the economy, on taxation, on transport, on rural affairs, kind of key elements of the conversation we're going to be having in May is going to be around the issues that are represented by these four women. So how do you have that conversation with the voters? Do you say, oh yes, we have the best policy on taxation heading into this election? No, actually, I'm not going to be the one who's going to implement it. In fact, I'm going to be sitting poolside on my sun lounger at my timeshare in Tenerife when some other sucker is going to have to actually make this stuff work. It lacks credibility because the voters are saying, well, voters want politicians to be accountable for what they say. And these four ministers fronting key aspects of SNP policy are not going to be accountable for the implementation of that policy. And that's just wrong. Okay, that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It shows a lack of accountability at the heart of the SNP's offer as we go into the Holyrood elections. And this for me, it's pretty obvious. This. So why has Swinney allowed himself to get into this situation? Why isn't he reshuffling this cabinet? Now I can think of only three reasons why this might be the case. The first is that he doesn't want to deprive his pals of their pro rata share of their ministerial salary, which is like 55 grand extra. I'll tell you what it is. It's £55,993 in addition to their MSP salary, which is about 70 odd grand. But he doesn't want his pals to have to kind of suffer this dent in their bank balance in their dying days in politics. That's clearly not a very good reason. Secondly, he might be thinking that the talent is so thin on the back benches and in the junior reaches of government that any people he brings in to replace them in cabinet will simply not be up to the job. And I think that's quite a credible, actually, quite a credible reason from a party management point of view. But it's not a credible reason when you come to making an offer to the voters and being accountable to the voters and treating the voters with respect. And the third possible reason is that these four women are simply keeping the seats warm for people that Swinney expects to be elected in May, who are not currently in the Scottish Parliament, but he expects to be elected to the Scottish Parliament and expects to walk into jobs in the cabinet. And these four ministers are simply keeping the seats warm for these four people who are currently not even at Holyrood. Now, I'm talking about people who, a lot of them are former MPs who are trying to move to Holyrood because they have high ambitions or because they want to be more of a minister rather than just a parliamentarian. No chance of being a minister if you're an SNP MP at Westminster, but obviously at Holyrood you can be in government rather than just in opposition. And we're talking about people like Stephen Flynn, the Westminster leader, who's seeking a Holyrood seat. Stephen Gethins, who was like the frontline guy for the SNP on Brexit during the Brexit years. He's seeking an election to the Scottish Parliament. Perhaps Alison Thewlis, who was a very good Glasgow MP for the SNP. She's seeking to move to Holyrood. So these are, don't get me wrong, these are credible figures. I'm a big fan of some of them. I'm less of a fan of others. We'll maybe get to that at some stage in these podcasts. But you know, we cannot have a Scottish cabinet where the personnel and shape of that cabinet is dictated by party management issues that Swinney might have in 5 months' time. Okay, and I get that if these people are heading to cabinet, it's a bit unfair and a bit brutal to promote other ministers and other backbenchers to positions in power in the government at the moment, only to kind of demote them later when some of the bigger beasts come in. But you know, this is politics. Frontline politics isn't fair. Frontline politics is brutal. Okay, and the Swinney owes obligations not to he owes obligations to his party and to the public, but his obligations to the public supersede his obligations to his party. So I think this is in danger of treating the Scottish voter with disrespect. Okay, it's basically saying that your needs as a voter and your rights as a voter to have a coherent party policy presented to you by people who are actually going to implement it in power, your right to have that and to analyse that and to question these people is less important than my right as First Minister for an easy life, basically, and for my right to kind of to play with my personnel and the cabinet ministers and what have you, the way that suits me and makes my life easy, rather than the way that you deserve as a voter to have an election conducted. And this is the golden rule of politics. Do not treat your voters with disrespect. Do not act as if you are taking them for granted. This is exactly what Swinney is doing. He's taking the voters for granted, first of all, by assuming there's going to be an SNP government, which I think is likely. And in the last podcast, we talked about how the SNP is really the only party with a coherent and compelling message that hangs together at this stage in the campaign. And looks like it's heading for power. But to act as if you are heading for power, and to assume you're heading for power, is madness in any politician. And with this failure to have a reshuffle, and instead go for the wee shuffle, Swinney is guilty of that cardinal political sin. Scotland doesn't deserve a wee shuffle. Scotland deserves a big shuffle. Scotland deserves a cabinet going into the elections that would be taking forward SNP policy in the SNP manifesto, and we need to look them in the eye, be able to ask them questions, and be able to ask ourselves, are these people up to the job? Now, if that means kind of giving some responsibilities to people currently outside the Scottish Parliament, then it's a bit strange, but it maybe that's something that we can look at. It's something I think it would be less strange than the situation we've got just now. So a point to ponder there. That's today's podcast. If you enjoyed it or you thought that was interesting, please let me know. Do a thumbs up or a heart or whatever it is on the platform you're watching on. As I said earlier, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you miss none of these in the future. You can watch this podcast on the Substack app. If you're unfamiliar with Substack, come over and have a look at what we're doing on the Jaggy Thistle. We look at Scottish politics, Scottish culture, long-form narrative, non-fiction, criticism, analysis, documentary photography, as well as these podcasts. You can subscribe for free, and there are also benefits for paid subscribers. So I hope you'll look at that as well. So thank you very much for your interest. I've been very gratified by how this podcast is beginning to take off after a slow start. It's starting to get the viewers now and the listeners. You can watch it on YouTube. You can listen on all the usual platforms. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for getting this far. Very grateful. We'll see you next time. Cheers.